Peace, peace, peace. Welcome to another episode of Wise the Dome. Today I have my brother and definitely friend of the show, Truth Minister Paul Scott, man. He's going to come in and build about some new initiatives that he has and that he's working on and, just in the art of organizing. And so I appreciate you again for coming on, brother.
Always honored to be here, brother. And we say God evening to you and God evening to all your viewers. It's always an honor, good brother.
Same, man, same. Every time we build, man. And so I definitely wanted to, get some of our conversations that we have. I wanted to get some of these on camera because I think they would inspire a lot of people and people that are into organizing and so you have the Bull City Griot and great idea. Haven't seen anything like it really, and it's a really great idea. So if you can explain to the people what it is and how you got started with it.
Yes, sir. Well, I've been, as many people in Durham know, for the last 17, 18 years or longer, every week, for the most part, regardless of, and you've been out there on the block, so you can bear witness, 100 degrees, 30 degrees, I'm out there handing out material to the people.
Yes.
It used to be, I started with books, and then I started doing conscious CDs that I would burn on the laptop with hip hop and lectures. I would pull lectures off of YouTube, like Dr. Clark and Coakley and whatever, and burn them, put them on CD and pass them out. VHSs, DVDs, anything I could pass out to community. But see, the thing is, over the last 5 or longer than that years, even that's become obsolete. So I went back to the books. And it was a blessing, really, because now people have gotten rid of their good books because everybody said, okay, everybody's streaming. Let me turn these books back in. Let me give these books back, make $1. I paid $20 for it, but I'm gonna make $1 from it by selling it back to a used bookstore. So there was a surplus of books at a point. So man, I just got classic books for $1 or $2, stay on the block, sling them out.
And yeah, and it's dope. And if you can give the people an idea of the kind of books you know what I'm saying, because it's some classic stuff. I already know, I've seen them. And what are some of the books that you've given out already?
Like I told this sister this evening when I was giving her a book, I said, what topic do you want? She said, what you got? I said, everything. She said, don't say everything. I know, no, literally, everything.
Right.
Every topic. Everything, brother. Dr. John Henry Clark, Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, U.P. Newton, everybody you can name, brother, I've given books out. And I'm not even talking about the last 18 years. If you're talking about the books I have as Black Griot, I'm a Bull City Griot has right now, we got everybody, brother. Because people because there was a drought with books in Durham, because we used to go to Stanford. I used to go to Stanford Air Warren Library every evening. And they would have classic Black books that they would sell for $1 or $2.
Right.
During the week, I would stock up, get 5, 10 books, pass them out during the weekend. But now that Stanford Air Warren Library has been closed for renovation, I was out of books. So I was blessed to come up with a concept. This sister, elderly sister, was moving. And one of my comrades, or one of my early teachers, Carter Q, he said, brother, there's a sister who has rooms full of books. She said, if some people don't come get them, they're either going to the good year or the garbage can. So of course I ran on over.
Yeah, right.
So she had 3 rooms, literally, of classic books.
Wow.
I grabbed a box.
Right.
Big box, to classic stuff, man. I'm talking about, you name it. It was in Malcolm, Walter Rodney, everybody. So I took a big box out to the car. Her nephew said, "That's all you want?" I'm like, "I can get more." So I got another great box.
Mhm.
So I'm riding home. And I said, "Okay, you've been giving out books, but you haven't really promoted it. It's just like a thing you do." Now, let me put a pin nail in that. For activists, it's important that you have one thing that you can show people.
Mm.
You might do 100 things in your community, but always have one thing you can pull out your pocket. When people say, "What do you do?" Pull out one thing that you can show and prove that you can do right now.
Right.
And for me, that was standing on the corner on the West End giving out books.
Mm.
So as I'm driving, but I never really promoted it as a big thing. It's just that one thing I pointed to. Where you going to be at on the West End passing out books? Pull up. But when I got all those books, I said, "Okay, let me rebrand this thing." And the concept popped in my head. I've been dealing with, because I had traced my ancestry recently, and I found out that a lot of my ancestors came from West Africa.
Mm. Mhm.
So I was dealing with the idea of the griot. And for those who, I know most of your viewers are familiar with it, that's a West African tradition. The person who goes around and spreads culture,
Right.
teaches, whether it be a historian or a singer or a poet, they carry the culture. So I was looking at those books. I said, Bull City Griot, Durham's first free Black bookstore. Because many of us know in the Durham area familiar with the No Bookstore.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The No Bookstore's been gone for 14 years. It ain't coming back.
Right.
No matter how bad we want the No Bookstore to come back, it's been gone for 14 years. So I said, let me do a free Black bookstore. So 2 months ago, man, we hit the ground running. Free Black bookstore in my trunk, on my back seat, and on my backpack. And that's how we roll.
Nice. Give me 1 second, G. All right, my bad.
No problem.
I had a knock on the door. But yeah, I mean that's a great idea, great initiative. And that's something, like you said, that we talked about earlier, like anybody can do on their own. I mean, go to find where you can get you some used books, and get 4 or 5 on the weekend and go pass them out. And with that said, the type of books, like you said, you have everything. You also have a lot of things, that pertain to our liberation, our struggle, and our history. Why is reading those type of books, and the type of books you are passing out, why is it important that the community have those, and what does that do for the community?
In my city, Durham, North Carolina, a lot of people have seen a documentary called Durham Under Fire. If you haven't seen it, go to YouTube and put in Durham Under Fire. It talks about the violence in Durham. And I'm actually in that documentary for a little bit, But they always talk about solutions to the violence in Durham. How can we stop the youth from killing each other? And they come up with these Eurocentric pre-programmed solutions over and over again. When in reality, the only thing that has stopped the violence in our community has been knowledge of self and knowledge of our history. That's the only thing that's ever worked. Now look at it historically. Marcus Garvey, organized on the low end 2 million, on the high end 11 million. He organized millions.
Right.
He organized millions, depending on how you talk to. Some people would go to low end, some people go to high end. What is undisputable is he organized millions of African people without the internet, with only a newspaper, the Black World.
Right. The Negro World.
I'm sure that had an effect on the violence. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad and hiss the people who came from him, experts in stopping the violence by giving knowledge of self and history. You remember the final call. I know they used to big time they would not only put Minister Farrakhan and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's books, sell their books. They were selling books like all kinds of books dealing with Black history. And not only that, conspiracy theories. When those of us started reading books like Behold the Pale Horse and Unseen Hand, it's because we read about it in the final call. So the Nation of Islam has been one of the great proponents of stopping the violence, so-called Black on Black violence. Look at the Million Man March. Look at hip hop. Hip hop, the conscious era hip hop, stopped the violence, made brothers take off their gold chains and put on African medallions. Right. We're talking about for 4 years, during the height of the crack era, 1988 through 1992, until it was destroyed after the LA rebellion, when they saw the brothers quoting Malcolm and quoting Kwame Ture, and they were asking the news reporters, were asking, where'd you get the information? They said Public Enemy, Boogie Down Productions, and that's why they destroyed hip hop. If you look at any time there's been a stop in the violence in the Black community, it's been because of promoting Black unity and pushing knowledge. So in my city, our city, Durham, North Carolina, I said the only solution to stop fratricide, self-inflicted genocide, would be to pass out books, as the scripture teaches us. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge.
Wow. And you know what that made me think of? You remember that song? It had on the West Coast, it was All in the Same Gang, and on the East Coast it was Self-Destruction. And those songs like wasn't considered like corny or nothing to us then, right? You know, like those was the heavy hitters on the East Coast, heavy hitters on the West Coast, and that was the real sentiment with a lot of the community. We'll get into it later, because I do want to kind of ask you something about that, but I kind of want to stay as far as this initiative and the importance and value of having knowledge yourself. You did mention, like on the documentary, as far as what the establishment and government's response is to neighborhood violence. For those that don't know, what would you say, what are some of the things that they respond with when it comes to our communities and crime?
You talking about the politicians?
Yeah.
For the most part, in my opinion, they practice a form of African anti-intellectualism. African anti-intellectualism. Many of them will try anything except Black power and Black unity. That's their responsibility, excuse me. But they avoid that. I would say that many of them would rather have the gangs than have the Black Panthers. I would even say, brother, even some of the parents. And this is getting a little off topic, but we'll get back to you.
Oh, we're good.
I would say even some of the parents, although they may be crying and saying, oh, save my baby, we need to stop the violence, y'all need to stop killing. A lot of these parents, because of our mental condition, they would rather have their child be a blood, crip, or a gangster disciple than a Black revolutionary. Because psychologically, remember, they would kill Black folks for reading. It was against the law and punishable by death to read.
Right.
You were known as an uppity Negro.
Right.
You would be lynched for reading. And that plantation psychology subconsciously went from great, great, great grandma and grandfather, on down, on down, on down. So many of even the parents today feel if they get involved in that Black stuff, they're going to be like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. So they say they have a better chance of living under white supremacy, being in a gang, than being a revolutionary.
Wow.
That goes back in the 40s. Look at history. That's not a new thing either.
Right.
In the 40s, there was a character called Stagger Lee.
Yeah.
And a lot of people glamorize the Stagger Lee character.
There's a lot of blues songs with that Stagger Lee character.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because the psychology was, he was a crazy Negro. And people would not mess with a crazy Negro. So they glamorize the Stagger Lee concept, but Stagger Lee was really only a danger to other Black people.
Right. Oh man, that's interesting. And you know, and I was doing a knowledge to something the other day, and it was about the church bombing in Birmingham, Alabama, right? And so, you know, anytime you're either reading or watching something when it comes to that, a lot of times they'll give you a broader context of what was going on within the civil rights movement, as they like to call it. And an elder was speaking, and she said, so an elder was speaking, two elders. And so one brother who helped organize, I forgot who it was. It wasn't Reverend Fred Shuttleworth. It was somebody else. But anyway, he was speaking, and he was like, you know, it was a small group of us, you know, when he was talking about the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and what they were doing. So it was a small group of us. You know, we kind of popped some things off, but it didn't get real until the kids came, right? And so the parents were trying to keep the children from joining these marches and these different protests, but the children were rebellious, and obviously during that time there was racism and white supremacy was so overt that you might not have had to read a book to understand what it was, right? You saw it every day, you know, especially them in Alabama, you know, dealing with the likes of George Wallace and Bull Connor and people of that nature, you know. And so, but what was interesting is the elder was talking like the children were out there handling their business. They were even going to jail for the cause. And the parents were at home, not participating. And some of them would even chastise their children from doing this. And so what you just stated, even though it's not exactly the same as far as parents being afraid of, in these days and times, of their children being revolutionary, but at the same time, it's still somewhat the same. It's a seed that continues to be planted. Whenever we look at our youth, right, most movements, I won't say most, but a lot of movements, especially here in the wilderness of North America, have been driven and powered by the youth. You know, after a certain age, a lot of brothers and sisters, they feel like they got a little bit too much to lose to do certain things, right? Or they may have children of their own, or just, you know, just a lot of things. It is what it is. But what is it about the power of Black youth, right, that are able to, whenever they get invested, whenever they do get the knowledge itself, how their ability to, you know, galvanize other youth and create movements that have lasting effects for us and our people? What is it about the Black youth that's able to do that?
That's a blessing and a curse. When I was coming up, first got involved in the movement, I was taught that you can't tell me nothing unless you got battle scars.
Mm.
You know,
Mhm.
because a lot of these elders, they never did anything for the movement, but they want to put everything on the youth.
Mhm.
No, show me where you did it first,
Mm.
then we'll talk.
Mm.
See, a lot of these people, it was for some, it was strategy.
Mhm.
You know, the youth won't spend time in jail. They're younger, they can run faster. Other people were just cowards.
Mm.
And they saw the youth as dispensable.
Mm.
You know,
Mhm.
they didn't have a job to lose. They didn't have as much to sacrifice. Yeah, they did. But your cowardly nature put children out there when your behind was home watching TV or
Mhm.
reading the newspaper.
Right.
So part of that wasn't strategy. Part of that was people just scared.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't let anybody, activists out there, don't let anybody put a battery in your back. I don't care how old you are, unless they prove they did it first.
Mm. Right.
We all got stuff to lose. But I've even noticed that coming up. Elders would get around saying, we need the youth to do this. We need, no, before you tell the youth what to do, first you establish where you did it. I need your paperwork.
Right. Where's your resume?
Yeah. Now, if your only resume is, I used to tell people all the time, and I used to talk around the water fountain, and I was telling the brother at the bar, no, I need to see Bible scholars.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No,
Yeah,
that's real. That's real because I felt that same, you know, and that's what one of they interviewed one of the youth that was there at the you know, a lot of the boycotts and marches in Birmingham, and when that's what she said when they were interviewed one of the youth who was now an adult, obviously. She said that's what we would say when the elders would, you know, tell them, like even when they would try to stop them, they would, you know, okay, why can't I go out here and participate in this revolution? And they say, you're too young. And the youth would say, well, why you ain't out there? You know what I'm saying? So if you're gonna stop the youth from participating in things that have to do with our liberation, and you ain't going out there, like somebody got to do it, right?
Somebody got to do it. But yeah, I think there's no easy way. There's no easy road.
Right.
At any level, there's sacrifice.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And part of the reason, some of the mistakes that were made in the movement was because they were youth. I mean, as much as we try to glamorize the Black Panthers, you know, we're talking about 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old kids.
Yep.
Who had not developed a concept of what to do.
Right.
And it showed. The reason they fell into so many traps was because they were young. So really, if you're older, you're supposed to be able to fight better.
Right. Right.
Because
and when you say traps, you mean like the traps from COINTELPRO?
Yeah. I mean, if they would have been older and studied more, they would have seen some of the traps that were repeated, that had been repeated since the 1940s.
Yeah. Yeah.
They would have understood.
Or even starting with Garvey.
Well, exactly. 1914, 1950, with Garvey. They would have understood what they did to Garvey and said, okay, they did the same thing to Garvey. This is what they're doing to us.
Right.
So it's a blessing and a curse. But if you know more, you're supposed to fight more. There's no easy ways. There's no shortcut. Everybody takes a risk. Right.
I was listening to some music today, and I had a playlist I had made. It's Marvin and Gil Scott-Heron, right? And so you listen to these brothers sing about what's happening and what's going on. Hold on one second. Somebody's at my door. My bad, that's somebody wrong. I don't know, somebody got something delivered wrong. But anyway, so no, I was listening. It was a playlist I made. It was Marvin and Gil Scott-Heron. And you know, they were obviously part of the soundtrack of, you know, thought and consciousness, um, uh, and revolution. You have written for hip hop. It was allhiphop.com. Mm-hmm. And so saying that to say this, you know, we see the news cycle is nothing but Kanye West at this point. And when it comes to everything that is happening, and as far as I guess what he said, his business, his business dealings, like whenever I know you may not have just because you know it can be a distraction, and but whenever you have just thought about and seen what's happening, what are your thoughts on it?
I think that there is a framework that people have to put the discussion in when we're dealing with anti-Semitism. First, we have to understand the word Semite.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a group of people, it's a language group,
Right.
first and foremost. Second, we have to understand that if you look at historically, biblically, the color of the people of the original Hebrews, without a doubt, they were Black people. So that's first and foremost.
Right.
Secondly, thirdly, there has not been a real discussion about the history of Black-Jewish relations. People like to point at, you know, the Nation of Islam and others, but in actuality, one of the earliest person who put out the idea, I was trying to pull it up because I had pulled it up, the person who put out the idea really of anti-Semitic thought, who said it first, those things that other people just repeat over the years, he was a Jewish man himself named Benjamin Friedman.
Mm.
He later converted to, I think, Christianity, but by their definition, you can't convert because it's whatever your mother is.
Right.
But the way they said, well, he converted, no. So those, even the Khazarian theory, that came out of the mouth of people like Benjamin Friedman.
Mm.
But they want to put the whole thing on a Black person, but you never hear them talk about Benjamin Friedman.
Right. Never. I never heard of it.
Yeah, Benjamin Friedman.
Mm.
He is the father of, really the father of anti-Semitism in the United States. And again, he was white and Jewish.
So here's the thing that I have issues with as well is, so the word anti-Semitism has been obviously weaponized to the point where nobody, like when you, if you critique Zionism, right? If Zionism gets critiqued, you will be called anti-Semitic, or the word anti-Semitism will be used. I remember I was speaking with, I was going back and forth online. It was with this Jewish scholar. He had been on Joe Rogan's podcast a few times, and he was talking about what he said, something that was really arrogant and somewhat disrespectful as far as him being a Jew and about other people, right, and in the region. And so I asked him about, well, explain the treatment of Ethiopian Jews that come to Israel and the fight for equality that they have. Well, that question alone made him call me anti-Semitic. Do you see that as being a weapon, obviously with powerful backing, that is used to keep any type of legitimate criticism of Zionism I would say, at bay.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at, see, we get caught up in the whole religious aspect.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about religion, whether you're talking about evangelical Christianity, you're talking about Judaism, people are looking about a belief in a spiritual being, belief in God. It's about power dynamics.
Right.
So when you look at it as a being about power dynamics, you take the emotion out of it.
Right.
You know, most people don't care what you worship, especially if they don't believe it themselves.
Right.
It's about power dynamics. And again, you can go and study. It's a book by Jeffrey Charlotte called The Family.
Mm-hmm.
And it talks about the power of the evangelical Christians. So you're
Oh
talking
yeah,
about
yeah. I saw
power.
the Netflix documentary.
Yeah, the book is better.
Okay. Okay.
Because the book, and I'm not evading the subject, I'll get back to it.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is the documentary doesn't talk about a group in Washington, D.C. in 1968 called the Buffers, a Black group where the evangelical Christians brought them dashikis, walkie-talkies, and made them into a fake Black Power movement.
Wow. Oh, wow.
That's not in the documentary.
Right. Yeah, it's not at all in the documentary.
It's in the book.
Okay. All right. Bet.
And that book is readily available. Every place I've seen that book, it's been like $2 or $3.
Mm-hmm. Now with what has happened with Kanye, do you think that so there are some things that make it problematic, certain things that he has said that people and done that people may consider anti-Black, right? But do you think that this stance that he's taking, because we talked about it before in the DM, but the stance that he's taking, there's nobody that's going to come support him, right? As far as to say, yeah, somebody that's powerful and wealthy and Black, or maybe even white. But do you see anybody coming to his aid as saying, Ye might be, some things he may have gotten wrong, but this, and this, he's right in this aspect, or at least have that push to have that conversation, that real conversation as to why one demographic is able to profit so much off of Black art and intellectual property the way they do.
But see, people try to scapegoat Kanye.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody really wants that smoke either.
Right.
They're saying, because Kanye's crazy, and we're not going to back Kanye because he said white lives matter. No, y'all went to back. He could have been the most politically correct, had everything correct, said everything proper, had it back. They still wouldn't support him because history dictates people don't want that smoke.
Mm.
Okay, you don't back Kanye. What about other people? What about Nick Cannon? Well, what's your excuse for not backing Nick Cannon?
Mm.
What was your excuse for not backing Professor Griff? And it goes on and on and on. So I don't care, like you just said, alluded to, brother. I don't care how politically correct he would have been. People still weren't going to back us. Nobody really wants that smoke. When we tried to get locally last year,
the Holocaust bill,
tried to get Black history added to the Holocaust bill that would make because in North Carolina, it's against the law not to teach the Holocaust. Mm-hmm. It's state law. We tried to get Black history added to that law. People ain't stand up and fight for that. Mm-mm. That same fear. They want,
and even the Black politicians. I remember they were like, they would. I remember because building with you on this, like they would act like they would be down, but when it came time to vote, like some of them gave excuses, right?
No, a couple of them did.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they did. Actually, they did.
Okay.
They actually stood up.
Good.
Because they brought it up. We had the conversation. They said they would. Sister out of Greenville, actually, she did it,
Good, good.
brought it up,
Props to her.
and it actually lost when it went through the education committee.
Mm.
But that's a matter of interpretation.
And
Because even the reporter said he really couldn't, it was a close call because they didn't do a vote. They did a yay and nay.
Mm.
If you listen to it, brother, that was the judge's decision which way it went.
Yeah, but didn't they say, what did somebody, because I'm just trying to remember, but didn't somebody say y'all already got Black History Month? Wasn't that like used as as an excuse somewhere?
I don't think it even got that far.
Mm.
I think it was just a plain, nah, we ain't doing that. But what happened was, the bottom line was, it was supposed to go through 3 more processes, but the way they did it, they let it die as a law, but they put it in the big budget. So it had been buried in the budget. So when it became time to vote on the budget, in order to get, teachers get paid and stop the state from shutting down, they had to approve the whole budget. So that's how they did it. But it never did come to a vote.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's like, it's not even getting to a vote. Like, why is Black, like, the people that, I mean, we know why, you know what I mean? Because giving us with knowledge is the biggest threat to the way this system goes, because eventually we'll understand that this system does not work. The system is not designed for it to work for us. Okay, it works for y'all, you know what I'm saying? But it's not designed to work for us. And eventually, like the things that they learn in school, that's why what you're doing with the Bull City Griot is so important as well. The things that they learn in school have no bearing and effect on who it's not unlocking their potential, put it like that. It's not giving them, like, whenever I started studying probably like my 11th grade year. By then I was already disillusioned with school. I had learned nothing pertaining to my origin in the world and my place in it, and why I am seeing all of these injustices around me. Nothing, right? And so you empower a child and equip them with the knowledge of their history and who they are. That spells doom for the establishment. But were you surprised when that didn't go through, that bill didn't go through, or it's just kind of like par for the course at this point?
I was surprised by the way it was done. You know, like Jay-Z, but I don't look at things emotionally. I study the way people do things. You can get mad if you want to, but like Jay-Z said, y'all admire the one who got shot, I admire the shooter.
Right.
So I look at the way things are done, but that just shows that the power of organization and the power of being willing to stand on what you stand on. But all these people, that goes back to the original point, all these people trying to put batteries in Kanye's back, they don't want that smoke.
Right. You know what? I remember building with you about something. I wanted to see if you can explain it here. Because it just bringing up the Holocaust bill thing kind of sparked the thought. And I remember you had built on it before. And being an organizer, being a revolutionary, what's the science of you putting in all this groundwork and then other Black folks swooping in and getting some funding who ain't really revolutionary about that and about that life, and then going back to where they came from?
It happens. It happens, brother. I mean, as your teachers teach, it's only 5% of any given population. That's not only, you always say 5%. It's only 5% of people going to do the right thing.
Right.
In our tradition, we say 144,000. Same science.
Right, same science, indeed.
Same science. 5%, 144,000, same science. But it just happens, man. I mean, but you gotta ask yourself how bad you really want your people to be free.
Mm.
You know, but
What
yeah,
go, but what you think goes into? I know it's hard to say. What goes into the psychology of a brother that is willing to come in and co-opt something just for the bread? I mean, that's the 10% bloodsucker of the poor. We obviously see that, but like, I just don't understand. I don't understand it.
it's
To be
capitalism.
so out of to be so out of touch with your people, where you are willing to, sell them out pretty much. Like, I don't know. I just couldn't sleep at night, man. I don't understand it.
I mean, that's because you have morals.
Right, right.
Capitalism isn't based on morals.
No, no, it's based on exploitation. Yep, yep. You're right. You're right. When we talk about the violence in places like Durham, but right now we can pretty much say a lot of most of the urban areas, and when I say urban, I'm not meaning just Black. I'm just saying the cities, right? Um, since the pandemic, crime rates have risen, right? Which, in my opinion,
Depends on who you talk to.
yeah, I saw some stats, and I haven't looked too much into it, but I did make the correlation of furthering an economic disparity between the haves and the have-nots is going to possibly make certain people turn up. And when I say the have and the have-nots, that goes to all the people that don't have it, and it's just not just our community that were economically affected by this. But either way, I've been looking and to see what the responses are from a lot of these cities. And a lot of these cities say more cops, man. Like, what's your what are your thoughts on that being the solution for the issues that we see in our community?
It all goes back to, and I'll keep harping on this, organization. If we as Black men, especially in our communities, aren't organized, what else are our people going to do? We have not given them alternative.
Right.
Who else they going to call? Ghostbusters?
Right.
We can, in theory, yeah, we don't need the cops, we don't need the police, but who do our people have to call?
Right.
If there were 10 Black men, how many cities have 10 Black men they can call on who will patrol the neighborhood or go out there and talk in the community? In theory, yeah. But the actual application is really not existing in too many communities.
Right.
So,
right.
Our people have no choice but the police. Now, ideally, we should be able to form a council of elders. Ideally, we should have enforcement. Ideally, we should have morality in place and social norms in place that if you violate certain principles, even your own grandma and mama would disown you.
Right.
Ideally.
Right.
But we don't have that because, as Kwame Ture taught us, lack of organization.
Remember, J. Rue said, he said, organization kills more devils than bullets.
Who said? Oh,
J. Rue the Damages.
What's that?
What was it? What was it? Hold on. Let me find it for you. I'm gonna get mad.
Yeah, because I'm kind of into J. Rue the Damager. Ain't the devil happy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn, you know this too. You know this song. The Frustrated Nigga. Yeah, the frustrated nigga. But I mean, I understand, and I definitely see the wisdom in that. I mean, we have to be active. We have to be seen. The 5% say Allah is seen and heard everywhere. You know what I mean? And we have to be seen and heard everywhere in our communities. And you've done a great job of that and provided a great example for that for over 20 years, man. So salute to you on that, for real.
Yeah, I've been at this work for 30 years.
30 years, my bad. 30. And so I wanted to, and salute again, but I wanted to ask you, with it becoming election season, something that I noticed, I saw an ad the Democratic Party. It was Trina, and it was the rapper Trina, and it was like some over sexualized thing that was pretty much like no sex, no vote. Then I remember like last election they did the stripper one, like get your booty to the polls. And there's another one, I forgot it, but there's another one too. Like what does that say about how they think of the Black voting bloc, where they feel like that appeals to us? Because most people I know find that offensive.
It goes back to how they feel about Black people in period. And that goes beyond just voting. How the Black community is seen as sexual animals.
Right.
Go back to Sarah Barton, Sanjay Barton.
Yeah.
How the especially the woman is overly sexualized. Go back to, and it goes back how they use the myth of the curse of Ham. And the actual, because most people haven't read the Bible, the actual curse that they're talking about is not really in the Bible, it's in the Babylonian Talmud. That extra stuff, that's in the Babylonian Talmud. So it's been used to say, okay, they act this way. They're animals. They like shiny things.
Right.
They like music. They like drums. So all these things are being used against us. But when you throw money and greed behind it, people go along with it.
Yeah, you're right. It reminds me of when Malcolm talked about he was being interviewed. I forgot which interview it was, but when he spoke on, like, whenever it comes to the important topics, important initiatives within the Black community, why y'all always pulling out an entertainer from the Black community? Like, as if we don't have thought leaders in every field that are conscious and would represent our best interests. You don't ever hear them. And for somebody that's been on Fox News, and after that, after after they saw how militant you was, after a few shows, no more. Like, did you see it like a shift in how that worked? Because I remember one time they were having you and Khaled and all types of brothers on there. You don't see you now, like Dave Chappelle, he made in one of his stand-ups, he was talking about, when 9/11 happened, why CNN have Ja Rule on there talking about as a joke? But we see that now, like people like you and people like other brothers and sisters that Sister Soldier was used to be on there. We don't see that no more. Was that a purposeful thing that happened and occurred because they knew that other Black people would be watching and be inspired by the things that you brothers were saying on these networks?
They weren't. Now, I can only speak from my experience. They don't care about shock value, brother. They like shock value. You're talking about when I was going on Fox, that was 2001, 2002. I think I got kicked off in 2004, something like that. But see, the thing is, you think that it's because you were militant and all that's why you get kicked off. No. When I started applying the teachings of Du Bois, of Garvey, and moving away from the shock value and went back to my reading grind and reading books and studying and really quoting things, got really into because I was good in I knew the Malcolm and I knew the some of Garvey, but when I really in 2000 early 2000, 2005, 2006, when I really started reading the totality of Black history, they ain't want to hear from me anymore. So it was, they like the militant stuff. Even going back to the Kanye
Theory and practice scares them.
yeah, even going back to the Kanye thing.
Mm-hmm.
If Kanye had just came with straight facts, they would have ignored it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
they harp on the stuff that doesn't make sense, or the stuff that's going people's attention. When it starts dealing with facts, they just ignore it.
Mm. I've actually seen that happen on these news channels where somebody hit them with facts and they literally ignore it. They won't answer the question. They'll just keep going.
I mean, they like the shock value.
Yeah.
The shock value, people want shock value. And, you know, that's one reason why I'm not writing about hip hop anymore. You know, people like the shock value. They like the little witty sayings. And you really go into depth and pull out the research and all that stuff. You know, people like to be entertained.
Right.
You know,
speaking
I
of
won't say, now I'm not going to go with the stereotype that people don't like education, but the masses of people like to be entertained.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, they, and including us, you know, which is, we got to get out of that. I have a big issue with celebrity culture, because especially in our community, in other communities, I could really care less, but in ours, I remember whenever I interviewed after I built with you and you linked it up for me, Queen Mae Jackson, and she was telling me about being a young teenage girl and getting off the bus and seeing Malcolm, like on the corner, and to her, like, he was like a celebrity. He was like how a girl may look at a young girl, or a young brother may look at a pop star today. Now we have a situation to where a lot of the youth don't know who the scholars and revolutionaries are, and the ones that they do know, you got to question if they are, in a lot of cases, if they are really for the people or not, because, you know, it becomes all about donations, money, and photo ops. And so that's my issue with celebrity culture, is just the fact that I've seen grown men idolize rappers to the point where they begin to act like them. They begin to, you know, talk like them and hold the same ideas and values that they talking about in their records. And these are not conscious records, or even, and when I say conscious, I'm not just necessarily somebody just breaking down, you know, the Bible, the Quran, science, and all of that. Some conscious records are, in my opinion, are, you know, Scarface telling street tales and telling you the pitfalls of what can happen whenever you are living a certain way. You know, there used to be in a lot of street records back then, there used to be a story that would just not only it wouldn't necessarily glorify street life. In some cases, it would tell you the pitfalls to it as well. The people that I used to listen to.
Let me ask you this though.
Yeah.
Not to cut you, Winston.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good.
I think Chuck D said this. I might be quoting the wrong person. But if you're drowning, do you want somebody to hand you a mirror?
Right. I mean, that's powerful, right? At the same time, when it comes to celebrity culture and our fascination with it, as a collective, we need to look in that mirror.
But look, let me add this. But see, the thing is, those street tales in hip hop, that wasn't for us.
Right.
Let's be clear.
Right.
That was not for Black people. That was for middle class white kids to live vicariously through those lyrics.
Right. because they were the ones that were actually buying it.
That wasn't for us, brother.
On a large scale.
On a very large scale, that was not for us. That was for white America, as they say, middle white America, who were interested in what Black people thought to be entertained.
Remember Tupac said that in an interview. He was like, it's, they mad now because their sons and daughters are imitating, or trying to imitate, us in their bedrooms while they listen to these records. And
I'll say this. Oh, go ahead, bro.
No, you go ahead.
But I'll say this. I count the conscious era as 4 years, 88 to 92. Half, the bottom half, the last half, that wasn't for us either.
What was that for?
That wasn't for us.
Why you say that?
The first 2 years of conscious rap, it was a Black market. When you start getting into De La, when Griff left Public Enemy, and things of that nature, white folks were buying that conscious rap. I've talked to some of the elders during that period, and they'll tell you, you go to their concert, the first 2 rows, nothing but white people.
I can bear witness to that. I've been to a lot of conscious concerts, and the audience is majority white people.
So it went for the first 2 years, we learned a lot. It was teaching us about X, Y, and Z. Public Enemy when Griff was there, they used to put the books you should read, and the books you could read and all the things. It was for us. But once it crossed over and MTV Rap came, it was a rap. Because we were no longer, they became more ambassadors to white America than teachers of Black people.
I see that still to this day.
Yeah.
Even a lot of the artists that they promote as conscious artists are really just like democratic shills at this point, where they're not really saying anything revolutionary. I mean, it can be uplifting to some, I guess. I won't knock it completely, but it ain't like what you're talking about, how it was in the beginning. Brother Paul, as always, man, I always appreciate the time and just being able to pick your brain. For anything, and for anybody that may want to, maybe donate books or anything to the Bull City Griot initiative that you got going on, just let them know how they can do so, or if they, just want to follow you online and pick your brain there and build. Just let the people know how they can get to you.
Yeah, the 2 ways. For the books, social media, IG, Facebook is Bull City Griot. Bull City Griot. But as far as the Black Messiah movement, all my social media is on the Black Messiah movement, and just reach out. But what I would say is the most important thing coming out of Bull City Griot nationally is not the books, it's the 4-step process. We call it backpack griots. In your community, get a backpack, put some books in it, hit the streets, and start teaching these babies especially. Grab a book, study the book, teach the information, and then give a book to somebody else. Those 4 steps. Backpack griot movement can be done in any city in America. And brother, I appreciate the time. I appreciate the show. As always, we leave with the Black Messiah motto: stop waiting for a savior and be one. Shalom.
Shalom, peace. Appreciate you, God.
Appreciate you, brother.